warm-up routine is so important. It's a great thing to do at the start of a practice session, something we should all be doing. But a warm-up routine is really quite personal, depending on what you are doing at the harp. Even more than just if you're a beginner, you might have a certain warm-up routine, and if you're intermediate, even beyond that. Because what I recommend that you do for a warm-up routine is, number one, start with some sort of dynamic stretching or something to warm your body up away from the strings. Something to get the blood flowing, get you mentally prepared for your practice session or your performance without touching the strings. And it's a really great idea with those dynamic stretches, and we have some examples of these in the membership. It's a really great idea to kind of stretch into any areas that you know you might get tense. So one person might get tense in their shoulders, that is quite a common place for harpists, but someone else might tend to get tense in their forearms. I also see a lot of harpists go on their tiptoes, and it means that they're clenching their bums and their thighs, and so actually the tension is coming from the ground up. And so it's really about knowing yourself and knowing your body, knowing where you tend to hold that tension, and then focusing your dynamic stretches in that area to try and relieve that tension before you begin. The second thing I recommend that everybody includes is individual fingers. I know that that is a bit of a blanket exercise, but it's just such a great exercise for really precisely warming up each individual finger at the harp. So no matter your level, beginner can play individual fingers. It's just placing 4 fingers on the strings and plucking each finger 4 times. And there's slightly more advanced versions that you can move on to, but simply starting by pulling each finger mindfully into your palm with good technique and bending your thumb mindfully into position and remembering to relax after each pluck is just the best way for any level to start. After that though, you want to include some close work. Close work where your fingers are close together on the strings, scales, triplet scales, alternate hand scales, these kind of things, Russian scales that we do in the membership, maybe like little 4-note runs or 3-note runs, these kind of things where your fingers are working close together. And then you want to include some stretch work where your fingers are stretching on the strings. Triads, inversions, arpeggios, 7th chords, something where your fingers are getting a bit more stretch. If you think about your fingers as little athletes, this is the best way to do it. So before your repertoire is your marathon. If you were warming up as an athlete for a marathon, you would start with that stretching, easy stretching, or you might start with a bit of walking before that to get that blood flowing before you go and stretch cold muscles. So get a little bit of blood flowing into the muscles, a bit of stretching, and then you might do a little bit of light jogging and a bit more stretching, and then you would run your marathon. But everyone's going to have a slightly different routine, just like everyone's going to have a slightly different routine at the harp. So after you've done your stretch work, I then recommend doing an exercise that is skill-based on the repertoire you're about to play in your practice session or in your performance. And so that's really specific to what you're actually working on at that point in time. So you might be working on a piece that has lever or pedal work. So you might want to include an exercise that has lever or pedal work. Or you might be working on a piece that has harmonics. So do an exercise that has harmonics. Or perhaps a toothy playing or some sort of specific damping. Include an exercise that has that. So your elements are dynamic stretching before you touch the strings, individual fingers, close work, stretch work, and then an exercise which relates to the repertoire you're about to play. And that is your checklist for your warm-ups. But you can hit that checklist by choosing different exercise depending on where you are in your harping journey.